said, I have to leave at 11:30 for this thing here. And so my husband spoke up and said, oh, I'll do the business.
You said, oh,
No, I didn't see it.
Girl, I can't hear
Because he
it.
can't see it. He can't even,
No, thank you.
and so,
First Church, may I have your attention, please? Thank you, Robert, for having this. This is a very bittersweet but exciting announcement. Mr. Michael Weakley, the Deputy Director, 1 in 10. It's about what did it look like when you first saw it for me. And when I first saw 1 in 10, it was a dream of making all of the things and the successes happen that is unfolding today. This is my second introduction for this young man that took an idea and had wonderful team players to make that dream unfold. And yet, when I was a part of that and giving my energy and time, it was only a dream. God is good because He unfolds many things to us. We don't know how it's going to end. I am proud to introduce you to Michael Weakley. Thank you.
Not quite as tall as Miss Millie. She's always been my angel. She's kept me in check over the years, though. She's called me out when I need to be called out, and I appreciate that. So I want to start out telling you all a little bit about my story. I think sort of knowing where I come from helps to understand the dynamic of why we do what we do at 1 in 10. So, Tennessee. Anybody ever heard of it? Yes. It has the state with the most other states connected to it. Jack Daniels and Dolly Parton. Not much else. Yeah. And so I grew up on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky in a little town called Clarksville. Take the last train to Clarksville? Yeah. They were going to Indiana, not my little town. And so it's an army town. And I'm one of 9 kids. Fort Campbell. There we go. So I'm one of 9 kids. My parents didn't have much to do, so they created farm workers. And at a very young age, my mom very tearingly came up to me and said, I'm really scared that you're going to be artsy. And I was like, well, I like to draw, but I don't know why that's a fear. And so she was very concerned. Now, we grew up in an old Southern religion called Church of God of Prophecy. And if you've never heard of it, that's okay, because I hope it's gone away by now. And it's an old Southern religion. Women didn't speak in our church. We weren't allowed caffeine. And you couldn't have music in a church. I mean, what kind of place is that?
really?
And so, hallelujah. And so, I grew up in a way that was very unique. But I also had a strong belief in Jesus, how I interpret that. And so when I was about 15 and my parents realized I was gay, they did what good parents should do. They told my preacher and our community. And so that Sunday, I was going to church and my mother was crying the entire way to church, and I didn't know why she was crying. And I looked so cute that day, though. I just remember that I looked really handsome that day. And so I get to church, and there are so many people at church that day. So I think it's revival. And revival means food. And everyone in this room, we enjoy food, right?
Absolutely.
And so I just knew it was going to be food, and it was going to be all this great stuff. So we're sitting there, and the preacher calls me up to the front of the church, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get like an award for like best Christian of the year because I'm so cool. And then they proceeded over the next 2 hours to anoint my head with oil and pray the demon of homosexuality to be removed from my body. This included my schoolmates, my teachers, my friends, all my family, my brothers and sisters. And so this went on forever. And at that moment in time, something came into me. I got soul, is what I say that day, because I started laughing, and they just thought I was crazy. like it was like burning a witch, and they just thought I was like crazy. But I started laughing because I was like, wow, this is their issue, not mine. And it took me a long time not to hate God and not to hate Jesus and to not to hate a church. But I can say here today, I criticize, but I don't hate. And the reason I share this story is that a lot of times I hear where it's so much better for gay, lesbian, and bi and trans kids today. And the reality is, what some of you all went through 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, the dynamics not really changed that much. Young people still have to come out to themselves, they have to come out to their family, they have to come out to their religion or church, and they have to come out to their school or community. And the reactions from people are very much the same as they've been over the last 50 years. What has changed is that there are resources for them now. They can get online, they can pick up an Echo magazine, they can get information from their school counselor, they can find 1 in 10, GLSEN, the community center, this place. They can find places that, and I love your slogan, I wish I could steal it, they put a comma where everyone else is putting a period. I just think that's amazing. And that's what's changed, and that's why resources like what we do at 1 in 10 have been so important, but also why they've grown dramatically. When I started with 1 in 10, not quite 8 years ago, we were one room at the Community Church of Hope, and we served about 35 youth, and we didn't really do a lot. We provided a safe space, we provided a place for them to come, but we really didn't do all the things that we do today. And over the years, we came and we had a lovely 2 years here, and during that time that we were here, we were able to build up who we are and then get our center on 3rd Street in Weldon. If you've not been by 3rd Street or Weldon or go to Pride or anything, it's just south of Indian School on 3rd Street, and it looks like, we call it the Flintstone building with the crooked windows, and it's on stilts. That's our building. And when they're dancing, it literally moves inside of our room. But that's our youth center. And at our youth center, we provide showers, toiletries. St. Mary's Catholic Food Bank provides all of our food, our breakfast, lunch, and our dinners, all hot meals. We provide about 75 meals a day. We have Q High, which is our high school program, which is awesome. Because 40% of kids under the age of 14 to 17, 40% of them that drop out are because of being gay, lesbian, bi, or trans, and it's because they're being bullied. They're dropping out as early as 15 and as late as 18. And a lot of them only had like a half a year to go or 1 year to go, and they were going to settle for a GED. What's amazing about our high school program, we give them a high school diploma up to the age of 21. So even if they've been dropped out for 2 to 3 years, as long as they have about a year to go, we can still get them a high school diploma. And when they're using that on their resume or for a job, no one knows the difference between that and a general high school diploma. So it's really awesome, and it builds a lot of self-confidence. And our school is really designed for those kids that are being homeschooled and not getting any social avenues, or that have been bullied and kicked out or left school. And so it's not for kids that are like in an environment that's good for them. If they're going to a school and it's working well for them, our school's not for them. But our school's really for those kids that have the highest needs. And we're really proud of high school. And we're in our 2nd semester. We graduated 7 successfully last year, and we have 18 enrolled this year. So we're really, really pumped about that in the school program. But we remind ourselves that being LGBTQ, it's an adjective, it's not a noun. It's an aspect of who these kids are, but it's not everything that they are. And someone asked me one time, like, what's the biggest issue facing gay, lesbian teens today? I'm like, acne. They're teenagers. Who are they going to take to prom? Acne, and they have homework due. Because they're teenagers first. And so we remind that, and we do really cool things, like we have a softball team. So to give you a little like background, whoever here's ever played like softball on a sport, like a big team sport? Who's ever played team sports? Who did it when you were in high school? So they've shown throughout the years that gay, lesbian, and trans youth tend to only play single-person sport, tennis. Things that they don't have to be in a group setting, that they don't have to be a part of a team, shower situations, all of that, because they're not welcome and they're usually not a part of that team. So what we've done at 1 in 10 is created teams. We have softball teams, we have volleyball teams, we have dance teams, and they learn that sense of community and the importance of sports. And I wasn't a big fan of sports because I couldn't throw a ball to that door if I had to. But I see what it does for the value of building these young kids' sense of community and sense of support, but also a sense of responsibility. And so teamwork like that it plays over to their adult life and gets them more committed and gets them to be a part of other communities and to really be a part of that. So we're really proud of that. But funny story about that, the first time that we did softball practice, we had everybody line up at first base, and they all went to home plate because that was the first base that they saw. And so we really have taken them for the first year we didn't score 1 run. And this last year, we were third place in all of the teams. So we're very proud of that. I had absolutely nothing to do with that, just to be clear. Another program we have is Camp Outdoors. So another part of my story is that after my parents wonderfully anointed me with oil, which obviously I'm a flaming heterosexual, that works. And so a year later I fell in love. He broke my heart. But anyway, so that year my mother sent me to Camp Change in Memphis, Tennessee. Which is so fun about Camp Change. It's for young people in our church that were involved in gangs, drugs, and homosexuality. Because they're very familiar, they're very similar, right? And so I always say that I started a gay gang that sold designer drugs, we're the pink side. Not really. But it was an all-boys 2-week camp in the summer. I mean, it was horrible. And I learned my lesson. But it just comes to show that people still rely on those type of things to change the innate being of who we are. And I don't want to... What I get scared of is that we get really comfortable in our society. We are provided with these safe bubbles. This church is a wonderfully safe bubble. 1 in 10 is a wonderfully safe bubble. But these kids don't live in those safe bubbles. When they're outside of these safe zones, these safety spaces, they have to face things like that. They have to face things like you're going to hell, you're going to get AIDS, you're going to die, you're different, you're less than. And so 1 in 10, our whole focus is to empower our young people to feel self-confident about who they are. Our mission is simple. Be self-confident about who you are. And everything that we do, we provide that service. So camp, what's amazing about camp, it's in Prescott, Arizona, which is nice and cool in August, so we appreciate that. And we reach out to those kids in Yuma, Douglas, Lake Havasu, Prescott, Sedona, all of those areas where queer kids live across the valley, across Arizona, and they don't have any resources whatsoever. They have nothing. The best they have is a Facebook page. And so we provide all of their transportation out of these small towns. Come up to Prescott for 4 days and meet all of our kids from Phoenix, and we just have this wonderful camp experience. And our camp is just like any traditional camp. We do, I again don't participate. They do hiking, they do, they jump out of trees, all of these great things. I mean, we do it with a little more style, we're usually wearing a boa, but we have to be true to our people. But they have a good time, and they're just reminded for 4 days that a camp experience can be a wonderful, empowering, leadership-building situation versus something that I went through. And unfortunately, the Camp Change actually still exists in Memphis, Tennessee, and they actually had one here a few years ago. They had one of those 4-day retreats here where parents could take their kids. So we have to be aware that these things are right in our front yard. And at 1 in 10, what we ask from community groups like you and for organizations like you is to be aware that those situations exist, and we can't always sort of fight all monsters. Because we're in the process of just getting our little monsters, just to get into school and get a job and all these things. But there are a lot of outside forces because I don't feel comfortable coming to places and asking for money. It will be provided because I know that we're doing a good service. What I ask for is awareness and just to know that these things are in our backyard often, they're our back door. There's a church in Tempe that constantly speaks hate and encourages members of their congregation to get rid of homosexuals. And so these messages are out there, and we have to be a part of that, protecting our young people. When those people at Phoenix Pride are waving their signs telling us how bad we are and how, that those kids see that, and you have to think about the mental process of an adult versus a kid. They're seeing that, and they're seeing these repeat messages over and over and over. We try to just give them this positive message that says, don't listen to them. But there's somewhere in them where they're hearing that from their parents, from their friends, and it does really stick with them. Last year they showed that 50% of suicides under the age of 17 were by gay and lesbian youth. And those were the only ones that were reported where the parents felt comfortable enough to admit that their kid had tried to kill themselves because they were gay or trans. And so these things are still happening. But I don't want to leave you with a gloomy message, because gloomy messages are not empowering. So what we have at 1 in 10 is called Sources of Strength. And it's a wheel of peer education that teaches our young people what their source of strength in their life is, which may be music, their talent, singing, theater. Some of them crochet, which is crazy. I don't know how to crochet. Like, they have all of these wonderful talents. They have their community, they have their churches, they have their family, they have all of these different things, sports, athletics, whatever it is. And that's what we focus on. And what we've done is change this sort of peer community, this youth community, to see when someone's on Facebook, which is how young people talk now, by the way. They refuse to even open their mouths anymore, so you have to like go on Facebook to communicate. But, a little exaggerated, but it's going that way. And so they utilize Facebook and social media because that's the new suicide letter. That's the new, hey, help me, something's going on with my life. And that's where they see that. And so when they see that with each other, they're like, hey, remember your source of strength. That's your brother's your source of strength. Singing is your source of strength. And they remind each other constantly of not what's going bad in their lives, but what's going good. We do this program with storytelling, which we get encouraged by a lovely young lady in the room, the value of storytelling. And so we have them to tell their stories, but they can't be the victim, and they can't tell a sad story. And it's amazing how your story and your perception of your reality in life changes when you take those two elements out and use it as therapy. And these young people, we're learning, because they love to talk. Teenagers talk more than I do. But they love to talk. But what we've learned is if you craft your story in the way you want your life to be, not the way you think it is, it's a lot more empowering. And we really utilize these tools with our young people to just really develop them into positive beings. So another thing we've done over the last 2 years is we expanded to Glendale, we expanded to Tempe, and then we went to Mesa. Mesa, they're very welcoming there. They're just so happy for us to do that. But I will say, when we opened up Mesa, we were surprised because we didn't think we'd have a large turnout. And we're at the YMCA right down on Mesa. And our first group, we had so many kids that we had to get a bigger room.
Wow.
And so the young people in Mesa are amazing. The average age over there is about 15 to 16. They're coming out really young. And it's a large, thriving group. And we have so far successfully had such a great feedback from parents and participation in parents because they were just happy that an organization finally came out all the way to Mesa. It's really not that far, but you think it's far when you drive out there. But it just feels like you have to pack a lunch. I digress a lot. And all this food being hungry. But so we went to Mesa, and it's been we're a year now at Mesa, and it's been a really incredible experience, as well as Glendale and Tempe. So we're really happy for that. And our next expansion will be Scottsdale. I think a lot of us underestimate because we think of Scottsdale and Paradise Valley as people with money. And just because people have more resources, a lot of times they also have more exposure to drugs. They have more exposure to alcohol. They have a lot more exposure to things. And so we're getting a lot of kids in that area that have different issues than our kids in Central Phoenix, but they still have the same amount of needs. Our most recent program, and one I'm the most proud of, is called Promise of a New Day, and that's our housing program. About 60% of the youth that are on the streets right now, again, identify within the LGBTQ, and particularly transgender. And so we have a program now for anyone 18 to 25 where we provide their housing. We provide an apartment for them downtown off the light rail. They have the expectations. They have to either be in school, get a job, or a part of community service. So not just a free ride. They have 6 weeks to get into the program, get whatever they need to do to get organized in their personal life to be ready for these next steps. And then we work with them, giving them jobs, getting them involved in the community, and making them a part of our society. So we did 5 this last year, and then we wrote a grant from the city of Phoenix. And for the first time ever, I will give props to the city of Phoenix, not the county, whatever the brewer thing is. What is she? Can she just go away? Really, we're done with you. Thank you. So the city acknowledged, and Mayor Gordon, what's his name? Stanton. Thank you. I'm really good with like names that aren't Governor Carl Hayden. No. So Governor Stanton. Some of you recognize that one. Thanks for creating Phoenix. And so he is really on board, and they're acknowledging the LGBTQ existence and homelessness. And so they just awarded us 5 additional apartments by the end of the year, and then 10 next year, and then 15 the following year. So that will be a total of 35 over the next 3 years. So I'm really happy about that. So not to get political, but he's amazing, and so is she, his wife. And they've done really good things for our community, and what's also great with that is they provided some financial support for us to have staff, because just putting a young person in an apartment, they need more of that. They need, they say it takes a village to raise a kid. It takes 2 villages, a tribe, and an alien outer space unit to raise a kid these days, because they have a lot more, they just got a lot going on. And so we really are doing that community approach. And that's why I come to things like this, because I know a lot of I actually saw 2 of my kids leaving today. I was like, yay! And so I know that a lot of my young people come into outside of the 1 in 10 community. And I ask you all to just be aware of how you're representing yourself. Some people in our community, and some people in general, don't always represent themselves well around young people. And how can you all be a catalyst for interrupting that and making sure that our young people are really being protected everywhere that they go? And that's the goal of 1 in 10, is just to produce amazing young people, showing them their potential, and then letting them fly. I'm trying to think of any other programs we have for this. Yeah, I think that's all the programs that we have. What questions do you have as far as like how 1 in 10 runs, or anything with that? Yes?
Well, not so much about the well, I guess this is.
Anything.
How do you tell the kids to respond to when people start giving them that hate stuff and saying, well, Leviticus said blah, blah, blah. How do you tell them, what do you say to empower them to answer something like that?
Well, okay. It's the nice answer. No. and that's changed for me over the years, because I come from this sort of legacy of like, don't mess with me, And I realized I wasn't teaching the best to my kids for doing that, because then I was just starting fights. So I remind them, if you want to come at me with hate speech, then I'll come back with you at love speech. Because if you'll actually listen to what Jesus said, which is actually the basis, you'll be reminded that he loved all. He loved the sinner as much as he loved the saint, and he loved the leper as much as he loved someone that was helping. So I ask them and I encourage them not to get into it, because you're not gonna win a dogma fight. It's not a dog fight; it's a dogma fight. Get it? Sorry, I think I'm funny. You're not gonna win that fight, so don't fight it, because you know who you are. What I encourage young people to do, and I encourage everyone to do, the more that you're out and aware, and the more that you stand up for bullying, and the more that when someone makes a comment that your older aunt, particularly I have an aunt in Prescott that's like a racist and a homophobe, and I told her, I'm like, I love you, but I can't be a part of your life if that's how you're gonna be. And there used to be like, well, that's the way she was raised, well, that's the way she was. That's not an excuse anymore. I don't accept that anymore. The way we can all change the way we were raised. We can all change our opinion. And if we learn, and one thing that I do for my young people that we do is a program called Speak with Love. And so really it's designed because they love to use cuss words a lot. And okay. I grew up on a farm. I mean, we use, but I'm just like, So we do this thing now called Speak with Love. I'm like, so if they use inappropriate language, I'm like, you know what? I'll talk to you when you speak with love, when you speak with love. And they hate me, and then they're like, I want to speak with love. I want to speak with hate. I'm like, speak with love. And so once they start speaking with love, it carries on. And I encourage them when they're having a conversation or an argument with someone to still speak with love. Show them. It's hard to hate somebody that's just being respectful to you. And so the more they're hateful, the more we're respectful. And that's the way I encourage it.
Just seeing Joe.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
Hey. Do what?
Have no seat. Anyway, I was going to tell you, when I run into a youth, when I take that the line, all the buses and stuff like that, I encourage them to ask me, because I always talk to
Jesse, we can't hear you.
I listen to them, and then I speak to them in a very kind and slow and compassionate way. And I tell them, I says, there is ways of doing this, and one is when you can. And I tell them, I says, they're on Facebook, because they're always carrying their phone. It doesn't matter, they might not have nothing, but they carry their phone.
Absolutely.
So the thing is that, I find very, very encouragable, because adults have, like, they forget where they came from. I have not forgotten that I was a child, I was myself, and that I want respect too, you know what I'm saying? So you got to tune with respect. because we dealt with it, Michael, a long time, when you were at Church of Hope, and all this kind of stuff, and you got to deal with them, and the basics that you're dealing with yourself, you know what I'm saying? And this is, if you are coming out of the store, you don't have to just generally be on the bus. If you're coming out of the store, if you're coming into a store, we know we are adults, but we have to treat them the way they would want to be treated ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So 1 in 10 has been doing a marvelous job in the years that I've known you, been acquainted with you. And the thing is that I encourage our church community, as the United Church of Christ, to deal with them as I deal with them, with compassion, with love, and tell them to deal with the problems that they have in life, like Michael said, with compassion and love, and Jesus will always be there.
All you need is love.
Well, Jesus is always there. Thank you, Michael.
No worries. And one thing I want to hit on too, really quickly, and I'll take another question in just a second, is that if you're not gay, that's totally fine. That's good. We still love you. We still love you. There's therapy for it. No. But I always like to remind people of the value of the straight voice in our community, because these young people a lot of them have lost their mother, their father, their aunts, their uncles, their cousins, and you can play a different role in their life. And if they see you as a heterosexual woman or male that's accepting and loving of them, it reminds them that there's hope. There's safety in our herd. The gay herd, we're pretty safe as far as acceptance. We may not always like each other, but we accept it. But for the heterosexual community, it's always very important to remember that you play just an important and valuable role, because these kids need to know that happens. Recently, we just had our first gay prom, which was a part of the Footsteps ministry, but really a collaboration of all kinds of different organizations and different people. And we had a large heterosexual presence there. And it was amazing because these kids were going to their first gay prom, but they were also feeling very comfortable with the hetero community. And I don't think that we acknowledge that enough. Like, I used to be very heterophobic. Like, straight men in particularly, they just scared me, and I didn't know how to deal with them, and women too, because I always felt that they were judging me. And I think we have to change that and remind these young people that that there's a wonderful and accepting straight community out there that is reminded we just love you because you're human, and your adjectives really don't matter.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Woo, straight people.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a bit of a digression. But I think it was very significant that just last week, I hope that a lot of you are familiar. I'm very familiar from my years in counseling profession of an organization called Exodus. And it was a nationwide counseling organization that their goal was to convert gay LGBT kids to become heterosexual. And last week they announced that they were going out of business, they were closing their doors, and the best part of it is that they apologized for all the years of harm, and they called it years of harm that they had done. I think this is very, very encouraging.
Oh, absolutely. And Exodus actually has a love story, because the two creators of that were these two young preachers, and they were going out and saying all this, and they actually fell in love as a part of that, backed out of it, and then some people try to keep the organization going, and then they sent out a formal apology. So there's actually a documentary on Netflix about it, which is so good.
What's it called?
I think like something with the word Exodus in it. But yeah, I watched it. I was like, oh, they fell in love. Oh, how did you meet? Well, we started this gay reformation program and fell in love.
I don't know how many adults
so many.
that I can in being a professional counselor that were dealing with the after effects of what they went through in Exodus.
Well, maybe this will help with that healing process. Hopefully, that will help with that. Yes.
Talk to me?
Yeah.
I assume you need volunteers. If so, what types?
Well, right now we don't need so we have mentors and we have volunteers. So mentors, we actually have a wait list, which is crazy. So it's one of those growing pains of becoming too big, then you become like, oh, okay, we have a process now. So we always need volunteers for collecting toiletries, and then you all have done that before us in the past. But that's so important when you travel, or you know people that travel. Keeping those small containers of shampoo, deodorant, please deodorant, anything like that. Sorry, personal space for deodorant during the summer. Any of those things are so valuable for our homeless kids because big bottles aren't, because it's too much to carry around. But the little ones are, and also I remind people this: you don't want to share your deodorant with someone else.
No.
You don't want to share your shampoo with someone. I don't even like sharing it with my partners. And so these kids that are on the streets, the little mini ones, really give them a sense of ownership and a sense of responsibility that these are mine. This is my conditioner, my hair product, my comb. So any of those toiletries complemented with backpacks are always very valuable. We need volunteers to come and help with the center. If any of you have softball coaching skills, we could use one of those.
You have what?
Softball coaching skills. Okay. So the volunteers vary with that. Now in the fall we'll do another call for volunteers and we'll send information out as far as mentors go. And then we just have projects and stuff throughout the year that we encourage people to come and be a part of. But 1 in 10, we've really made a really good name for ourselves. But with that, we created a really cool volunteer program.
Where, after we make that trip to the 99-cent store and buy all those little toiletries, where can we just drop them off there at the school, or where's the best place to drop them off?
So school's not in right now, so I just remind people because it's summer. School's not in for the next 3 weeks. We're out, but we're there after 2 o'clock every day. So it's 3rd Street in Weldon, 3660 North 3rd Street, and I have some brochures that I'll leave as well. No, actually, yeah, they have the address. And so you can drop them off anytime there. And actually, if we're not there, we have a porch and we have a security area there. So you can actually, if you want to, drop it. But just leave us a note, know who you are, though. That way we can say thank you or just know who you are. Yeah, if you drop it upstairs, just literally follow the rainbow
Yeah.
up the stairs. We got to keep it real. What else? Yes, sir.
What's your primary source of outreach for these young kids?
Well, it's changed over the years. So when I first started, 1 in 10, it was 35 middle or upper class white kids, and their parents accepted them. And they were like, oh, it's so hard to be gay. I'm like, you got it made, come on. So we started going out to places that make us feel uncomfortable. And I think that that's something very important for people to do in any type of outreach. Don't go and speak to your same herd because you're going to get the same results. So we started going to the Hispanic fairs, the Latino fairs, the Irish cultural fair. Oh my Lord. It was fun, but they can drink some beer. And we went to the Chinese festival. We go to schools. We go to South Phoenix. We go to Glendale. We went to Glendale. We're the first gay and lesbian group to ever be at Glendale Glitters and have a booth. So we've done a lot of things. I think that's important because it's easy to find the kids that already know about me, know about 1 in 10. But making that genuine effort to go out and above and have us be seen everywhere. And like at the Chinese Cultural Fair, it was really frustrating because they did not come by our booth or whatever. And one little girl came by the booth, took a pamphlet, and then she just flew off. She didn't talk to us or anything. She just flew off. And 2 weeks later, I saw her at the center. And I was like, it was worth it. And so for me, putting us out there and reminding these kids that no matter where they are, they can find us is very important. And above and beyond that, of course, social media, Facebook, word of mouth has really done a lot for us. And me coming in to do things like this, because hopefully when you come across someone in your family or in your environment, you're going to be like, oh, 1 in 10. And that will remind you. Yes?
Well, we have other nations within Arizona, and so are you able to go out on the res, any of the tribal communities?
Some, yes. So we have a great relationship with the Native American Health, Native American Connections, and the Native Cultural Center, which is that beautiful building on Central that, I don't know if you've seen it, but if you've not, go visit it, it's very beautiful. They are very welcoming. So if you think of the tribal nations as a hierarchy of these things, the hierarchy is actually like, yes, we have lots of trans kids in particularly, but a lot of queer kids. So we are okay with it. Now, individually, when you go into the different ones, you may or may not be so as accepted. But we're working on that. And we're actually working with the Casino Arizonas to because they fund youth programs and showing them the value of funding these programs. So our goal by next year is to have a more like prominent res face, because not always easy for those kids to come to Central Phoenix 1 in 10. So we try to go out there and we do safe sex for them. We already have been doing that for years, but we're trying to do a little more for that. Yes.
Are you reaching out to small towns, like Superior and Grove? That's I was born and raised in Grove. And there's a lot of youth out. I mean,
Absolutely.
I had 3 other gay brothers, and we were raised in Grove.
Wow.
And they were very accepting up there. And
In Superior.
they've had stuff in the past. That AIDS, when it was AIDS, well, they did something there. They took a big old ribbon. So
Yeah.
they're pretty open there.
We do as much as we can. Really, camp is that one time of year where we can really reach out to the I call them the burbs, but reach out to these rural communities.
How do you reach out to them?
Well, we go there, and so as a part of, Casa Grande has a gay day, but what we do in Superior and those places, we find them online usually. We can find kids on. You can do a search for pretty much anyone in any area now, and we get those kids to our camp. But above and beyond that, we just don't have the capacity to really go out there as much as we'd like. But what we did create is a toolkit. So any organization across the nation can get our toolkit for free, and it teaches them how to start up a youth group. Because really, when we started Community Church of Hope, we had no cost. What it cost us was food, and we got that from the community. So we show communities like that you can start small groups with a little to no cost and get the community involved. And so that's the one resource that we can do for them.
Are you doing stuff for God with them? Not counseling, but like peer support, stuff like that?
Absolutely. We have, over the years, we've done NA and AA programs that have been different values of success because a lot of times young people are in a space where drugs are still experimental. So you have to just be aware that for some of them, that's just going to be their journey. But we do give a lot of information about trying to prevent them through the drug phase and through the drinking phase.
How is that a program to do that?
Yes. So it's called the YES program. And we do specific information and outreach for that. But we always need more of that because we have a lot of that. We have a lot of substance abuse in our community. Absolutely. So. But one thing I wanted to say is, and thank you all for letting me speak, my last day at 1 in 10 is next Friday. It's been a wonderful 8-year journey for me, but I am leaving a wonderful legacy. Stacy J. Cavalier will be taking over my position. If you've never met Stacy, he kind of looks like me, but a little more masculine. But he's been with us at 1 in 10 for the last 4 years as my director of programs, and he'll be taking over my space. My partner and I, the last year and a half, my grandmother lived and passed away with us, and it was a wonderful experience. But she was an old Southern woman, so she wore me out. And but in that process, she left me the opportunity to go and live abroad. And so we will be doing humanitarian work, starting in Portugal and going across up into Asia, hopefully by next year. So I'm really excited about that. But you're going to start seeing Stacy J. He's amazing. And Cato, 1 in 10 when I started, we had me and a half-time person. Now we have 12. And so we have a lot of young people in our community that are really advocating for the rights of our youth. So you will be seeing them and more of them, and not me. But thank you all for letting me be here today. I really appreciate it.